Well, hello everybody. Welcome to another Chalk Talk session with JP's Chalk Talks. Hope everybody's well and safe. So glad to be with you again in this session. Got a special friend with me today, Marcus O'Rourke. He's a YouTube creator, a great friend of mine, very well experienced in audio. So I'm going to introduce him in just a moment and bring him into the conversation. But before we do that, I want to thank you for joining the channel. If you're not a subscriber today, I'd be so grateful to have you subscribe to the channel, ring that bell to get notified so when I add a video, and you can take a look at the video, and you can hit the like button if the video is helpful, as well as ring that bell to get notified, obviously, as I said that, to get notified when a video is added. So today we're going to talk about the area of audio. This is an important topic that in 2020, as so many people jumped into streaming, and whether you're a YouTube creator or a church or a corporation or somebody that is just getting into the streaming space and doing these functions of bringing these elements of what we call online video and using different software, audio is an important piece of that. I've mentioned in previous sessions that I've done or videos that I've posted on my own channel. So I wanted to bring Marcos in. One, he's a good friend of mine, and he has a depth of experience, and he's well versed in providing some input on some considerations that we could take a look at. So without further ado, let's bring in Marcos. Hey Marcos, how are you doing?
Hello. Good, how are you?
Awesome. What a pleasure to have you. I know, first of all, we made it through the year 2020.
Yeah.
We're in 2021 now. How are you getting along? It was kind of a very challenging, a lot of changes. We're in this new norm, we keep calling it.
Well, I mean, I work in radio, and so for the most part, things are kind of the same for us. We have really started branching out and getting into a little bit more of bringing in contributors via internet technologies such as Skype and Zoom, and another specialty product from a company called Comrex that does high bitrate HD video over the internet. So we've kind of really expanded into those areas, and during this last year, my knowledge of video and video transport and editing and all this stuff has really it's expanding, it's growing. So
absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the key attributes to this whole process of whatever this new norm is, how kind of we go there. And I kind of jumped ahead a little bit. You kind of mentioned working in the radio station or broadcasting industry. Maybe just take a moment, because there's two parts of that are unique to Marcos here for everybody watching. Is one, he does work in the radio broadcasting industry, and two, he's also a YouTube creator. So Marcos, maybe just take a moment and just quickly introduce yourself, and maybe talk about your channel just for a moment.
Sure. So I'm Marcos O'Rourke. We all know that, but I've been working in radio now for 21 years. Most of that, let's see, 16, 17, 18 years in an engineering capacity. I started weekend overnights here at the station that I'm at, and went into promotions, and then did music scheduling, and then kind of migrated into engineering. There was a need for that, and I was kind of the only one who was willing to read the manuals. I was the only one who'd really run sound at church and was interested in fixing things, building things, and the technical aspects of the station. So over those 18 years, we'll call it, I have learned quite a bit as far as the technical side of producing audio, and more recently, producing video. So all of that experience and things that I have learned, I am bringing into my YouTube channel that I've going on my second year now, I think.
Yeah.
So bringing all that in, I've always called myself the behind the scenes of the behind the scenes. So when you look at behind the scenes content, usually it's what? For movies, it's the actors, you see the behind the scenes, that maybe you'll see the director, and that's about it. Same with radio. When you look at behind the scenes for radio, you see, the DJs and things like that. Well, I'm there behind the scenes, and the support system for them can be really interesting. I mean, how does a person sound the way they do on radio? How does radio get to my car the way it does? And that's what my channel goes through and explains, demonstrates, and along the way there's some pretty wild adventures that I get to go into. And for example, this past week, I was at our site outside of Barstow, and it's one of our transmitter sites out there, and I had to hike up to the site because there was too much snow. So, fun activities and adventures like that.
No, that is true, and I can attest to that because I do follow Marco's channel, and I will put a link in the description for everybody. It's a Socal Broadcast Engineer on YouTube, and there are some adventures that Marco's does take us along with. That I've seen a few of them, and I think if you have a chance, check out Marco's channel. And that's actually one of the reasons that I brought Marcos in, because we were conversing back and forth about, we're always talking about audio and video and streaming and just kind of exchanging ideas as a whole. But one of the videos that Marcos did back in 2020 was talking about microphones and kind of giving examples and stepping you through the process of what microphone, from a dynamic mic to a cardioid to some other type of microphone. And this is really important for streaming. I think as so many people jumped into it, Marcos, you're right. As even in our respective fields, right? You're in radio and the broadcast industry. Others may be in a different space where you brought in the online video, and that kind of mushroomed and expanded really quickly, right? In relation to with the pandemic. And as we do this, and I think one of the challenges that I've seen in some of the community groups that I follow on Facebook and other areas is audio, right? It's one of the important elements for video. People can kind of adjust with the video quality issues they may see, but if audio isn't really kind of tightened up and providing a clean, it really does impact the overall experience for the online audience. And I thought maybe you could just take a moment to kind of share your thoughts, your perspectives. I was thinking about, from that episode, you talked about microphones. There's obviously other considerations. Would you have any suggestions that you think of?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we don't need to overthink audio. It is by far the most important. There are studies that were conducted by the broadcast organization, technical broadcast organizations, and they came to the conclusion that if audio is not good, people tend to tune out. If the video is less than perfect, but the audio is still good, they're happy, they're fine. And so the important thing is making sure that your audio is solid, and the microphone selection is one of a few aspects to that is very important to having that good audio for your videos. Or if it's a podcast, that's your only medium that you have, is the sound. And so microphone selection is one of those pieces.
Would there, and we'll link to the video that you produced, because I think that was something that really will provide more in-depth overviews of the type of microphones for consideration. Is there one particular microphone that you have seen in terms of just, getting something that picks up decent quality, that somebody could interface? And that could be a USB mic, or it could be even go through XLR through a Rodecaster Pro or Focusrite. I didn't know if you had a quick thought on a particular one that sticks out in your mind.
Yeah, so I also do professional voiceovers as kind of a side gig to help pay for my addiction to video and YouTube. I mean, all this wonderful technical equipment.
Yes.
But in that time, doing some research about USB mics, and some of the older the older advice was to stay away from USB microphones. But in the last couple of years, the technology and the ability of USB microphones has significantly improved, leaps and bounds, compared to where it was 2 years ago, maybe even a year and a half ago. And one that I've used personally is the Apogee Mic Plus. And I love that mic. It sounds amazing. It's a condenser microphone, plugs right in USB into the computer, shows up as an audio device, and also has a headphone jack on the microphone, so it becomes your audio interface to your computer. It sounds great. It reproduces your voice very well. Does it sound as good as a $3,000 Neumann? Well, no. I mean, a $250 little USB microphone with a capsule about yay big compared to a Neumann with a capsule about yay big. It makes a difference on the size of the capture surface of the microphone. But, but the Apogee is a good one. I've used for my videos the Rode Video NTG. That one is probably a very close second place to doing voiceovers, to capturing audio, and that one's more of a shotgun style. And then here at the station, professionally, you kind of step up in different degrees of microphones. We've been using the Electro Voice RE20s, and those are dynamic microphones. And each of those has their own characteristics of how it picks up sound and how much outside sound, unintentional sound, it rejects. So you have your condenser microphones, and really those are going to be your three types. Condenser, shotgun, and dynamic are going to be the three types of microphones that you're going to really come into contact with for video, for podcasts, etc. And a condenser mic will really sound good with your voice. It'll really pick up and reproduce your voice really well. But if you're not in a perfectly quiet environment, everything else is picked up too. All the reflections of your voice off the walls, the dog barking downstairs, the guy mowing his lawn 2 houses down. It picks up everything. Clothes rustling, everything. Shotgun microphones tend to be a lot more focused on where they pick up. You do have to kind of pay attention to what's directly behind the microphone, but generally it will pick up this. The sound is not as faithful of a reproduction because of how it has to do its pickup pattern, but again, most of the time it will do the job just well, just perfectly fine. And then finally, dynamic microphones. And these are going to be your Electro Voice RE20s, your Shure SM58s, even the Shure SM7Bs, and the new USB one, what is that one? The Shure SM...
Oh, yes, the new USB version.
Yeah, there's a USB version that just came out.
Yeah, there's that one.
It looks pretty nice. I haven't had a chance to try it yet, but it's got little processing on the back as well. And but anyways, absolutely. But that's dynamic, and that will pick up. If you stay up kind of close to it, it will reject more of the noise that's around. So you'll have a quieter noise floor to help your audio sound just a little bit more professional. So those are kind of the microphone considerations. Sure.
Absolutely. No, I think you're right. And the other one I was thinking of too, that's similar to the Shure SM7, that another friend of mine out of Nashville mentioned, even the new Rode NT1.
Yes.
Has very similar sound qualities. Now, it's not a SM7B, right? It's not at that level. But that was another one that I noticed, and that's actually being used quite a bit. Several people are using it now for podcasting. and doing that. And even in my own setup, in my own home studio here, I was kind of going through microphones, and some people will notice that some of my audio was either low or high, and I'm doing all this stuff, and so I ended up doing two things on my side. Was using my Sennheiser shotgun mic, the MKE, I think it's the 600, and kind of using a different style, usually more direct and targeted, as a scratch audio, what we call it, and doing that. And then my other primary audio that I'll pull in now is using the Zoom F2, which is basically 32-bit audio at 48K. Won't go too much of the weeds here, but essentially what we're saying here is that, it's the technology is progressing to the point where we can take certain things and, as Marcos is saying, is really, clean it up, make it sound professional, right? You don't have to spend a huge sum of money to do that. But if you spend the time and the due diligence, right, and put the effort into it, as you're saying. So we've talked about microphones. I think another area too that we've talked about is the noise reduction, right? You talk about dynamic mics and certain things, and picking up the other ambient noises or certain types of microphones. Would there be other considerations from a noise, reduction? Not, and I'm thinking isolating. There's blankets, there's things you can use.
Right. Yeah, that's something that's frequently overlooked is noise absorption in your room that you're recording. Think about walking into, say, the bathroom, and you clap your hands and you hear everything bouncing around. That noise kind of echoes forever. And then you go and to your closet, stick your head in there, clap your hands, and that noise just dies off right away. So the difference is you have that in the bathroom, all these hard, flat surfaces that are just bouncing that audio right back at you. Just like a mirror reflects the light straight back, all these hard, flat surfaces reflect it right back at you. And what happens with your microphone is that they will bounce off those surfaces and come back into the microphone and be picked up either as echo or as in the radio world, we call it multipath, which basically means it comes back out of phase into the microphone and it makes you sound weird. And so it can be distracting. Right. And so that's the difference of sticking your head inside the closet in the clothes. It absorbs all that extra sound. So all that's really being picked up is your voice to the microphone. And I'll admit, my voiceover booth at home is in my closet. I have a tiny postage stamp little walk-in closet that I, pull in there, squish into the clothes, close the door behind me, and that's what I use to make a decent amount of money. I mean, enough to pay off some cameras, but it's just about absorbing that sound so it doesn't reflect back in. And it could be something as simple as moving blankets, which are probably some of the cheaper ones. There's foam that you can buy on Amazon that you can stick up on the walls. It's that wedge-looking stuff or the egg crate-looking stuff. Or you could even do some DIY type of things. I have props. So this is when we did some construction here at the radio station some time back. We moved some walls around, and so we were able to salvage some of the foam that we had on the walls. This foam is nothing more than just building insulation covered in fabric. And so if you want to do your own DIY radio station sound recording foam, noise reduction foam, it's Owens Corning 705, comes in different thicknesses, and you could put a little wood frame around it and cover it in cloth. And that will do way more than moving blankets and RLX foam that you can buy. But it takes more effort, and it takes up more room on your walls. But
that is true.
All of those things really are to soak up the sound. And if you're doing a podcast and you don't really have a video component to it, then honestly, your closet is the cheapest thing to soak up that sound. and just
Yeah.
really keep those reflections down.
I think you're right. There's two different approaches, right? There's Deity did a great video on YouTube showing just kind of constructing through PVC piping and putting blankets and creating a way to create, as you talked about, simulate the closet concept, right? Of isolating, whether it's voiceover or some type of podcasting type element to it. We do need to think about, how do we reduce the reflections and kind of the echoey type areas where we can, without having to do a bunch of work in post, right? And having to go edit and use things like Crumple Pop or denoise through whether it's Adobe Premiere or Final Cut. So, and I think that's...
And even those tools, though, can only go so far. So it's
Absolutely.
always
totally
best to get the best product on the front end, and then do the minor little cleanup at the back end on the post-production side.
Absolutely. So I think that's totally. Well, I think what Marcos and I are going to do is we're going to do a couple things. We're going to put some links. One, I'll put a link to his video. We'll maybe put some highlights in the description that talks about the sound material, different things, some thoughts of considerations, if you will, of maybe as people plan through this process and kind of look at that, and maybe again Marcos and I can come back together and pick another topic. I just recently, as I mentioned earlier in the conversation, picked up the Zoom, and I was showing Marcos before we started recording the Zoom F2 unit, which I really enjoy. Again, this is an area where it's a bit of an investment, but when you start getting to an area where maybe you're doing an interview, you need to mic up an individual or a set of individuals, and you're in, obviously, with social distancing and the various things that we have to attend to, but getting that high quality audio, right? And that, it's all about, as Marcos talks about, a little bit of redundancy we have in the process for backup to go, and if we need to modify something in post-production where we can pull that higher quality audio back, sync that up with the video. That's something I did recently with Nick Brosco, where we showed multicam and doing those type of elements. So there's a lot of considerations I think we can all take and say, okay, well, that could maybe address this one area. So Marcos, thank you
Absolutely.
for your time.
Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
No, same here, man. It's a pleasure. I really respect Marcos. He and I have actually worked in some crusade events, both on his perspective, his professional field, and mine. We've collaborated, and it's been fantastic to work with him. I really highly encourage people to check out his channel and his nice little escapades when he goes out to have to go and address certain things. And there's simple things like the UPS goes out, power outages, a variety things you don't think about from another industry. So I highly encourage him. I'll make sure and highlight that in the description. So for everybody, thank you for joining. Thank you for being with us today. Stay safe, stay well, and we will talk to you again in the next session. Take care.
Thanks.